It's working to me.
It is.
And I'm going to start recording.
Okay.
I'm making Matt and Debbie the co-host in case anything should happen and go wrong. We have backup. Not that that will happen. Okay, I have 6 o'clock. If everybody is okay with that, we'll get started. Other than Matt Fitch and myself, you're welcome to mute yourself and turn your cameras off, and we will do the presentation. When the presentation is over, if you have any comments or questions you'd like to share, you can put your camera back on and unmute yourself and share away. Hey, Matt.
Good evening, Jamie.
So let me share my screen, and then you can tell me if you can see it, and that will indicate that other people probably can see it.
Yep, looks good.
All right, thanks. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the 2022-23 budget hearing, where Matt Fitch and myself will present our budget, our proposed budget. I'm Jamie Farr, I'm the superintendent of schools, and Matt Fitch is our assistant superintendent for business. So let's just jump right in. Typically, the way this works is I'll do a little bit of year in review. Sometimes we're presenting to community members that may not be quite as familiar with the happenings in the school district. And so this is an opportunity to bring people up to speed, specific to what's been going on this school year, which, as you'll hear, has been quite a bit. And then Matt will get into the financial pieces of the 22-23 budget. So let's just jump right in. As a reminder, we have a new district vision and mission. Our vision is one community transforming lives. Our mission is to explore, enrich, and empower. We went through a whole process where we met with community members and we had open meetings that anybody could attend to help rewrite our vision and mission. And about the time that this became an actual living document is right about the time the pandemic set in. And for a lot of reasons, people might say it's hard to live out your vision and mission in the middle of a pandemic, a global pandemic, but also in a lot of ways, I feel like it guided us and it helped steer us through this pandemic. You'll see in these white boxes on the top of this visual are our 4 district goals. And these are district level goals that everyone works to support, even at the building level or individual staff member level. In this big image is a picture of our Prism concert from this past school year. And hopefully you've been to a Prism concert. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's one of the greatest events that we do every single year. It's put on by our music department at the Academy. And traditionally it occurs in the auditorium. It is a full house and they do 2 back-to-back shows. And really it's a performance that lasts 90 minutes without applause. And it's from one number to the next, after another, and you really get to see how talented that department and our students are, and it's just such a wonderful evening. Well, with the pandemic, it wasn't feasible to put everybody in the auditorium for 2 back-to-back 90-minute sessions. So we had a whole lot of people work together to create an experience that would still honor what the Prism concert is. And what you see in this picture is half of our students were performing in the gymnasium, and you can see a screen that dropped down, and that's actually projecting performers in the auditorium. And so the audience was split between 2 spaces, and the performers were split between 2 spaces, and sometimes they'd go back and forth between the spaces. And it was real time, live time, there was no delay, and it was just a wonderful experience. And when I think about that event, and I think about our 4 goals that you'll see in the white boxes, I believe that actually touched on every one of those 4 goals. And I could think through this school year of many instances where we were faced with obstacles. We tried to think creatively, and using these 4 goals and our vision and mission to guide us, we were able to accomplish some things that, certainly worth being proud of. And so I just wanted to give a kudos to everybody who's really worked hard to make this year a success, despite so much that stood in our way. I feel like we rallied together as one community and did some really good things that we should be proud of. Want to talk about COVID numbers a little bit. This is up until May 1st. And what you'll see is the top chart is the students, the bottom is staff, and then the blue line are COVID infections. Now, it doesn't mean that staff has had more than students. They're scaled differently, as you can see, but you can see it's dipped. So since the March timeframe, the numbers have really kind of come way down. What you don't see are the last about a week and a half in here. And what I can tell you is the numbers climbed and then they've dipped back down to right about where they are at the last time this chart was updated. So last week our numbers were climbing. So far this week, early on this week, our numbers have come back down, which is hopeful, but still it's there and it's something to be aware of. And it's something that's really created a lot of challenges for us as a system to operate. We've had a lot of rules placed upon us by the state government that we've had to adjust to. And it's taken a lot of resources and time, but hopefully we're coming out of that light at the end of the tunnel, and we can start putting our resources back towards the educational purposes. And we see that trend happening now, but our numbers are coming down, which is a great thing. Continuing to work through those lifting restrictions like I had just talked about, and we see a lot of images here, some images of our nurses, true heroes that they worked tirelessly and just did a phenomenal job for the last 2.5 years. And I couldn't be more thankful for them. And our instructional staff, we see a few photos of our staff in here, our maintenance staff, our transportation, you name it. People really stepped up in a big way. And then at the center of it all is our students, whether masked or unmasked. We see the smiles on the faces and the wonderful experiences that they bring our school community. And so it's good to be towards the right side of that visual coming out of this pandemic. And so we're happy for that. As you might know, the federal government gave all districts some money to help recover learning loss and other needs coming out of the pandemic. One of the things that we did amongst many things is we created small intervention teams at the primary elementary school to give more targeted instruction to students and help recovery for academics. We've increased our SEL team, so counselors, social workers, psychologists. We've worked with the county to have more people on site servicing our students. And we've also done some professional learning opportunities for our staff. And the second half of this school year really has picked up. We have so many offerings on a weekly basis for our staff to participate in professional learning, whether it's in person, whether it's asynchronous online or synchronous online. The numbers have just been remarkable. Our staff, they're eager to learn and eager to engage in growing as professionals, and that's just fantastic. And then we've offered Saturday enrichment opportunities for students, many of them, and that will continue. We know when we offer these, they sign up like that. They're very popular. Students and parents alike really want to be involved in that. So we'll continue doing this. And when I mentioned the federal stimulus money, we have 2 more years to spend it all. And then it's, if whatever we don't spend, we lose. So we anticipate some of these things that you've been seeing this year will continue and grow for the next 2 years. And then we'll have to figure out how to revision it for the future after the federal stimulus money is gone, because, it's a significant amount of money that we couldn't just pick up on our own and do on our own. We just have to look at it in a different way in a few years. And we're undergoing a huge capital project, a $60 million capital project that our community approved a couple of years ago. So thank you for that. And what phenomenal upgrades that we're seeing. We could see some old bathrooms, restrooms with old fixtures, tile, lighting, ceiling, floors. We had to do some abatement. And then you see some of the new ones, the new bathrooms with the school colors, new floor, new windows, high efficiency lighting. Here's a locker room at the middle school, but you can see how vibrant and just the difference in the environment in which people work and play, and that's important. Moving along, the primary school cafeteria was completely gutted, the kitchen and cafeteria. So now they have all new appliances and workstations. Again, high efficiency lighting, new flooring, just everything's brand new, and it just looks spectacular. And I know our staff and students are really thrilled. We also have in there a bathroom now that students can access. We didn't have that before, and hand washing stations that obviously is hygienic. And so those are in there now, which is outstanding. You can see a few more pictures. I think this one is actually at the middle school. This is a hallway at the primary school, a classroom. You can see new countertops, cabinetry, storage, hooks, new flooring, new high efficiency lighting. The bathrooms were renovated in the classrooms. We have ADA compliant bathrooms now in the classrooms. It looks like a new space, which is fantastic. There's a lot of work to go, and we're nowhere near done. We still have about a year and a half, almost 2 years of this work to go, and it will touch every building in our entire district. And so it's a lot of work. It's a massive undertaking, but our facilities really needed it. They were falling into disrepair in certain areas, and this was necessary. And so we appreciate and we're excited about this work ahead. And I believe, just to note, so many successes, whether it's sectional championships, which we've experienced several of those this year alone. We see our artists doing some art shows. We've had a couple in the last few weeks. Our musicians performing, and then our musical. It's been a while, a couple of years since we've had an actual musical on stage with a live audience, a full house, no masks, and what a phenomenal celebration that was. And a thank you to Mr. Shaman for his 30 plus years of being our director for theater. This was his last show. SpongeBob, I hope you caught it. It was just the kind of message and upbeat show we needed for this time. And so just a lot to be thankful of and a lot to smile about. And so without further ado, I get to talk about the fun pictures and vibrant, great stuff happening. And Matt, since he's a business person, he's equally as excited about numbers as I am about pictures and vibrant, fun things that we've been working on. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Matt.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Jamie. So we'll start with the revenues for the 22-23 budget. And there's 3 areas we'll focus on. The first is the first line, the local tax levy. The proposed budget would increase the tax levy by 3.19%, or just over $1.5 million. The next area that we'll look at is the state and federal aid. You see a large increase there of just over $1.5 million. We'll talk about that a little bit more detail in a few slides. Majority of that is due to this capital project and state building aid, and we'll get into a little bit more detail. And then the last line we want to look at is the appropriated reserves and fund balance. You'll see that currently we've appropriated $910,000 to this year's budget. To next year's budget, we're proposing to appropriate $1,806,000. Typically, the district has had between $1.8 and $2 million in appropriated reserves and fund balance. During this current year, we were able to reduce that drastically, and now we're back to a position where we need to go back to our more normal levels. So overall, the proposed budget will be $83,248,803, which is an increase of just over $3.9 million. Each year, we look at the tax cap and where the district has gone out. So the tax caps came into law in 2012-13. The blue line is the maximum tax levy amount. If the district were to exceed that amount, we would need a supermajority to pass the budget. If we're at or below that blue line, then the district just needs a simple majority. You can see each year the district has been traditionally below that line and has never exceeded it. This year, the tax cap is 3.19%, and we're proposing to go out at the 3.19% limit. So we talked a little bit earlier about the increase in the state aid and what we're seeing, and Jamie talked earlier about the capital project. As we continue to work through the capital project and continue to spend the funds that were approved by the voters, we will continue to see some increases in the budget due to that. The way this project was planned was that as we increase expenses through the budget for the project, we would get equal offset in state aid for the budget. So you can see on the second line that our appropriations for next year are increasing by $1,165,000 for our debt service for this building project. And on the revenue side, our state aid, our building aid, is increasing by $1,160,000. So those two numbers offset each other, so it does not increase or decrease the tax levy, but it does increase the total amount that we spent through the budget. When we look at the expenses, we look at it in 3 parts. We look at the administration, program, and capital. The administration is anybody in our administrative team, district office, principals, assistant principals. You'll see that portion is increasing by approximately $200,000 to $6,745,922. The largest portion of our budget is program. Program is what you would traditionally see in a classroom. So teachers, teaching assistants, any other staff, desks, pencils, pens, and also includes transportation. So you'll see that's the largest portion of our budget. And this year would be $64,143,352, an increase of just over $2,050,000. And then the last part is our capital, which is anything with our debt service, so our construction projects, and also any of our maintenance and custodial staff. And so you'll see that increase. It's increasing larger than it traditionally would, and that's due to the project starting, the capital project continuing to hit the budget. So that's increasing $1,665,000. So overall, an increase of $3.9 million on the budget from year to year. There are a few staffing changes within the budget. We had, I believe it's 17 teachers retire this year at year end that we'll replace. We also have an addition of a 0.5 English language learner teacher in the high school. This is due to enrollment trends and needs of students that are English language learners. We're increasing 2 elementary teachers. This is simply due to enrollment and section sizes within each of the classrooms and getting those within our preferred numbers. And then also a bus driver trainer. As everybody around the state and around the country has had difficulty filling bus driver positions, we need to be able to train our drivers as quickly as possible and get drivers on the road. The bus driver trainers also has the capability to be able to drive for us as needed. We have 1 reduction in our staffing. It's a 0.85 FTE teacher of the deaf position that was district-wide, and we are no longer needing that position. Each year within the budget, we include a $100,000 capital outlay project. This year, we're proposing to do this at the academy, which would include, it would be in the science rooms. It would be replacement of fume hoods, chemical cabinets, and the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing that have to do with each of those projects. When we spend money towards a $100,000 project next year, the following year we get state aid, and our current state aid ratio is 73.2%. So next year, if we spent the full $100,000, the following year the state would reimburse us $73,200. So when we look at our budget, the appropriations for next year's budget are $83,248,803. The tax levy would be $49,900,441. And all other revenues, state aid, some miscellaneous aid, and some small federal aids, total to be $31,542,243, leaving a balance of appropriated reserves and fund balance of just over $1.8 million. Well, each year we look at an estimated tax bill, and we look at a home valued at $150,000. At this point, when we're presenting, we take current year's assessed values and just take that number and increase the tax rate by the tax levy percentage. So last year at this time when we were presenting a $150,000 home, our estimated tax rate was $19.25. And that $150,000 home after stars tax bill would be $2,327.50. When we actually adopted the budget, or excuse me, the tax levy in September, the actual tax rate came in at $18.17, significantly lower than our projections. And so that $150,000 home after stars actual tax bill was $2,165.50. Again, this year, we're just taking the current 1817 and projecting an increase of 3.19% to the tax rate. And that's where the $18.75 comes from. We expect that to be conservatively high for our true tax rate, but each home within the district, depending on the equalization rate, may have a higher or lower rate than that number. So based on the $18.75 per $1,000 tax rate for next year, a $150,000 home would have a tax bill of $2,252.50, or an increase of $87. Each year when we present, we use a conservative number when we're presenting, and typically when the budget's adopted, the the actual tax rate is lower. So 2 years ago, when we presented the budget, we estimated the tax rate of $19.18, and it actually was $18.93. Last year, as I showed in the previous slide, the estimate was $19.25, and the actual tax rate was $18.17. And this year, again, a conservative number, $18.75. We anticipate this tax rate to be lower, but we go out with a conservative number at this point. Each year that we purchase additional buses, we replace our buses on an 8-year replacement plan currently. This year, we're proposing to purchase 7 74-passenger buses and 1 64-passenger wheelchair bus at a total purchase price of $1,069,045. We use a transportation reserve and fund balance to cover that, so it does not increase taxes. We are the conduit for the budget vote for Wood Library and also for collecting the taxes for them and then passing the taxes through us to Wood Library. Wood Library is proposing a tax levy of $844,250, which is a 9.5% increase. And their estimate is that on a $150,000 home, they would see a $2.51 increase. We have two Board of Education seats available this year. We have Dr. Jen Schneider, who is completing her first term currently, and you'll see her on the ballot. And we have Ms. Jennifer Tessendorf. She would be a new candidate. Mrs. Michelle Pedzik is completing her second term and has been on the board for 10 years, and she will no longer be running. So there are 2 board seats. There will be 2 individuals on the ballot. And the budget vote is coming up soon, next Tuesday, May 17th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And depending on where you live in the district, your voting location would either be the primary elementary school link gym or Cheshire Fire Hall. That's all I have.
Thank you, Matt. And I will stop sharing in case any board members may have any comments or questions. I know as board members, you've seen this many, many times throughout the developmental process. So your questions likely have already been answered. So hearing none, which is great, I'll call the budget hearing section of this to a close. And right now it is 6:22. So the board meeting will begin actually in 8 minutes. So what I propose we do is just stop our video and mute ourselves, and we can come back online at 6:29 to start the board meeting. Thanks, Matt.
I've got 6:30, Deb. Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nice to see everyone tonight on this glorious spring day, finally. I have no opening comments. Jamie, rather, I'll turn it right over to you to see if you have anything.
Yep, I just have a brief comment, and it's coming off the budget hearing that we just performed. So a week from tomorrow is the budget and board vote. I'd like to thank Matt Fitch and the business office and all the folks involved. And that includes Brian and Matt Schrage. Everything they've done to prepare the budget. It's always a massive undertaking, and as always, they do it just so impeccably. And I'd also like to thank Debbie Sunlove. A lot goes into what you're about to see next Tuesday, and it is a long, long day for her and for everybody who helps and volunteers and works the election. So, Debbie, thank you so much for everything you do to ensure that it just goes, I'm going to say it, goes so well. Because it works like clockwork with all the detail that you focus on to make sure it does that. So thank you. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you. Nate, you are up.
Mine's pretty brief tonight too. Everybody at school is pretty much just focusing on taking their final tests and wrapping up for the year. I'm pretty sure we're halfway through AP week, or the couple AP weeks. Today we had AP Calc this morning. That was pretty fun. But I know testing ends Friday, and that's pretty much what everybody has in mind right now. And obviously the beautiful spring weather. So everybody's kind of getting a little taste of senioritis. So that's all.
Great. Thank you very much. Let's see, we have minutes up for approval. I'll ask for motions, please. Michelle, Beth, questions or comments? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. And let's see, we've got the capital improvement project phase 2 contract, the parking lot and sidewalk at the CACC. I'll ask for motions on that, please. Jen and Amy, questions or comments? Deb, whenever you're ready on that one, please.
Mrs. Calabrese,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Pedzik,
Yes.
Mr. Palomini,
Yes.
Dr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Grimm.
Yes,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you, Deb. And Matt, the educational presentation, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's educational presentation is going to encompass a couple of different things. First, this is the annual update to the Board of Education regarding the district's counseling plan. But combined with tonight's presentation, you're also going to get some data relative to all things mental health as it's related to the workings of our mental health team working with students this year. So the update is going to be pretty comprehensive. You're going to get an update about the component parts of the plan. You'll see some data around mental health and its impact on our students across the district. And to lead us through that presentation is our lead counselor, Leanne Ducharme, as well as Vern Tenney, who's our Director of Student Administrative Services. So Leanne and Vern, thanks for being here. We'll turn things over to you whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for having us tonight. Vern, can you share your screen so we can begin our presentation, please? Thank you. So as Matt mentioned, we're here to talk to you as part of the New York State guidance. Every school district has an expectation that their counseling program will report out to the Board of Ed annually with sort of a year in review. So we're going to do that this evening, and then towards the end, show you some work that we've done in terms of collecting data. We know, like when we talk about core content areas and data points, it's all around classroom assessments and how students are performing. It gets tricky when we talk about our school counseling curriculum and the services that we provide to students. So we worked quite hard this year in terms of trying to identify areas that we can sort of tap into to measure what we are providing to students and the progress that we're making in terms of that. Next slide. So we wanted to start tonight about talking about the effects of the pandemic on the students' mental health. You hear about it a lot, and we see it daily with the students that we work with. Last night, I don't know if anybody watches 60 Minutes, but they did do a little segment on the effects of COVID and the pandemic on youth mental health. And the Surgeon General has actually called it an urgent public health crisis. According to the CDC, in their hospital admission data, they reported that teenage girls and suicidal concerns was on the rise 50% since 2019. So it is a problem. And tonight we're going to kind of talk about how we're trying to support students here at Canandaigua who are struggling. Next slide. You can see this is from an article that was published in March by the CDC. And research shows that when we surround youth with the proper support, that we can reverse these trends and help them on their way to their future. What we struggle with is access. So when I say access, it's hard because when we try to help families and students that are struggling with mental health concerns in terms of supports in the community, what we're running into is a lot of wait lists, long wait lists. There's an average time across the country in terms of accessing mental health supports of 48 days. So we tend to try to support our students here until we can get them that outside intensive therapeutic help that they need. One of the things that we recently did this year, which I'm very proud of, and I want to thank the district for allowing this, is that we've begun a partnership with the Ontario County Mental Health. And we piloted this year in the middle school, and it's what they call a co-location of services. So we have a therapist from Ontario County Mental Health who's at the middle school for a day and a half a week. And last I checked, that mental health provider is able to service 14 students in the time that they're in the middle school building. We are currently in talks of the possibility of expanding that to extend to the high school for a day next year. Those are all things still in discussion, but it's a great direction we're headed in terms of trying to work with families, provide them services, and not have to be on a wait list to receive help outside of school. Next slide, please. So here you're going to see the New York State Ed requirements for our counseling program. So they put them into categories. So you can see here, each component is what is our program and our plan is made up of. The next slide describes it a little bit more in depth. So when we talk about deliver a counseling program, so that is our content that we provide K-12. So what it looks like in each building is a little different. The elementary and the primary is more classroom guidance, where counselors are going in and providing some social emotional learning content to our students in the classrooms. Middle school, they do groups with students, skill building groups, and we are working towards improving our career education in the middle school as well. We have put in a request for some summer curriculum writing so we can improve that 6 through 8. And then at the high school level, in terms of our counseling program, we're not in classrooms like you would see in the lower levels because the classroom time is so valuable in terms of the academic instruction. So we do a lot in terms of doing seminars during the lunch periods in the LGI where students can attend. And then we do one-on-one meetings with all of our students. We, one of the requirements by the state, bullet number 2, is that all students have access to a certified school counselor. And we have been a district that has met that requirement for a very long time. When the state came out with that, there were a lot of surrounding school districts that did not have certified school counselors in their elementary buildings. So they did have to hire at that time, but we have been a district that has seen value in that and has had those positions. The conduct an individual progress review, grades 6 through 12, that requirement is that each student will have an individual meeting with their school counselor one time per year to talk about their academic progress, their career goals, and their future planning. We implement that counseling curriculum, and then we try to ensure that we are putting more of our time into direct services, so directly working with students. So that would be through instruction, advisement, and counseling versus our indirect services. Now, the indirect services are just as important, but we want to use our time with working one-on-one with students. Indirect services would be things like referrals, consultation, and collaboration. Next slide. So the review process. This past fall, we had a half-day conference day, and we got the entire K-12 counseling team together. We kicked it off by taking a look at what we currently do in each of our buildings in terms of our program. And we compared it to the ASCA framework. So the ASCA is the American School Counselors Association. It's an association that many states have modeled their own plans after. So we took that and we self-reflected. We identified areas we thought that we were doing well in, and then areas where maybe we had some gaps. From that, we decided that we wanted to create a core team to help our entire department move forward. So the core team is made up of one counselor from each building. And then we talked about our next steps being a time on task, collecting some data, and preparing to present to the advisory council. In January, that core team met again for half day. We talked about what our counselors' desires are. So when we think about the state saying that we have to have this comprehensive plan, one of the things we wanted to determine was, yes, we have to have it and we can check a box and create something, but we want something that's going to serve a purpose. We want something that's going to represent what we do. And so we talked through what that might look like. We analyzed the time on task. Now, to explain what the time on task is, that's where the counselors took a 3-day window and literally kept track of their time from the moment they started their day to the end of their day in about 15 to 20-minute increments. And then they filled out a table. So I spent 15 minutes on emails, or maybe it was 30-minute chunk for that. Then I met with a student for 40 minutes, and then I was at a CSE for 40 minutes. And all of that data we put into a chart, and Vern was able to convert it to what percentages of our day is spent with direct student services, what percent is spent indirect, what percent is spent on non-counselor related tasks. So that is important data to have so that we can kind of reflect on, as our days go, where are we spending our time, and does that make sense? So we analyzed that, and then our next steps from the January meeting was to calibrate it, because what we found in that data was I might put something in the indirect category, but another counselor put it in direct. And I'll use an email for an example. Because they were emailing about a student, they kind of put it into the direct category. So we got our team back together, and then we looked at where we're placing things so that we could be more consistent, so our data would make more sense. Next slide. March, we had another half-day work session. And in that work session, we had been talking a lot at our different building levels about MTSS and our shift as a district in trying to make that part of our practices, those multi-tiers of support for students. So we realized that that was sort of lacking in what we were doing with our plan. We do a lot as school counselors, but we don't do it in isolation. Much of what we do, we are partnering with all the other providers that we work with, our social workers, our psychologists, our prevention specialists. And we felt that as we move forward with making this plan, we want to be inclusive of all of those people who assist us in servicing our students. So that was part of our reflection on the March day. And then the next slide, we went to the Committee on Instructional Excellence to talk to them and do our yearly report out to them. And we asked their thoughts on us moving forward from a simple counseling plan to be more of a comprehensive mental health plan that's inclusive of all of the providers and all the services that we offer to our students K-12. This isn't to dismiss the fact that the plan will still include our career education that we provide K-12, our academic advisement and support that we provide for our students. But we wanted to make sure that the components of the plan that truly do surround the counseling piece and the mental health included those supports that we receive from the other providers in our district. Next slide. So after that, Vern took a lot of the data that we collected this year, and I'm going to let him take it from here and sort of explain to you the pieces of data and what it means and what it tells in terms of what we have done so far this year.
Thank you, Leanne, and thank you to the Board of Ed for inviting us to present tonight. When we talk about the story of our district's mental health, we really need to be able to take something that is quite subjective and try to put objective measures to it so we can actually look at this in a systemic way. So just as a refresher, I'm sure you've heard this a bazillion times, MTSS, the multi-tiered systems of support, is a systemic movement to put continuous improvement around our students' academic, behavioral, mental health, attendance, you name it, in which we are using data to drive our decisions, our interventions, and also be able to review those interventions. So we need to be able to clearly articulate our student mental health needs in our district. We can sift through the treasure trove of student academic data and see where students are. We can disaggregate academic data. We can do all those things to inform academic decision-making. But in the mental health world, our reviews started to really look and there really was not a clear, structured system of looking at our mental health story, our mental health situation in our district. So we have begun, and this is just the infancy of our work here, but we have identified structures and systems in place, and we're starting to pull them together to be able to understand the comprehensive story in our district of the mental health needs. So starting off, we look at our caseloads. Now, caseloads in our district really do vary based on the structure. So what we have here are students per counselor, and we've identified all of the counselors in our district by a code, not by name. So when we look at these, keep in mind that the American School Counselor Association recommends a 250 student to 1 ratio. So we see this, and this typically in the past, looking at how decisions were made, this was the data that was used to make possible decisions around our mental health needs. So I'm presenting this to you to basically use this as a launch point. This is just the beginning, and we have to dig deeper, but also we have to look at more granular data to really be able to understand the mental health needs as well as the effectiveness of our programming. So here's one that looks at the required mandated counseling, and this represents sort of a comprehensive collaborative approach to how we meet the IEP mandated counseling needs. Now, this is broken down based on building, based on number of students with mandated counseling. What this does not show, and this is why we have to come up with better ways to look at what we do, this does not show if this is weekly, bi-weekly. So at times, sometimes the data won't say exactly what is going on, but we're moving in that path to be able to say, this is what is going on in the mental health department, mental health world for our district. So at times the IEP counseling can be done collaboratively, co-facilitated between counselors, social workers, psychologists. But we wanted to start off with, this is what is required, and we must be doing this. And we are. This data right here shows you something different. This is not mandated, but this is what is happening in our primary elementary school. I'm showing you, after we drilled down a little bit, the snapshot of non-mandated requests sent to our counselors for more than just a check-in. This is where a teacher or a parent through the teacher have submitted a request for the grade level, you see it, counselor to meet with, schedule, consult with, you name it, to work with a student. Now you can see the beginning of the year naturally is where you have a lot greater needs, but this is showing you the need and the work placed on our mental health team, specifically our counselors. These, mind you, are not acute needs. These are, let's check in. There's something going on here. Maybe there's something at home. Maybe there's behavioral concerns inside the classroom. This is not an acute emergency scenario. So this is placed onto our counselor specifically of something for them to add to their plate. This is a representation of the acute needs in just the primary school. Why am I showing you just the primary school? Well, we're giving you a snapshot tonight. And if I were to show you every single piece of data, it would be, I think it would be overwhelming, but it's also not providing the snapshot. The purpose of tonight is a snapshot of the mental health story. This shows you the acute mental health needs at any given time during the academic day from September through the end of last month. This represents a radio call for assistance, either a yellow or a red. Now, in my mind, as someone who is not in the building, a yellow is a heightened level of concern that there is something occurring with a child that we are possibly going to either escalate, or maybe we can send some mental health team support to the room, the classroom, the location to provide supports before something turns possibly worse. A red is where mental health team members, they hear it, they are proceeding to the location as quickly as possible to de-escalate a situation. This does not say how many. This does not say how long they were engaged. It does not say, is this the same child over and over and over? However, it is showing you the volume of calls made over the radio to respond in real time to a situation involving a student, possibly in crisis. I'm going to show you the other bookend. Now, this is something brand new that we started to do at the end of November, and we are trying to capture what occurs in our academy counseling office, our high school office. This shows you the on-demand student shows up needs. This could be an acute need, self-reported. This could be an academic check-in with the counselor or the social worker who is stationed in the academy counseling office. This could be for a counseling appointment. We wanted to show you the frequency and volume of unplanned, most likely, I'm assuming something right now, unplanned needs placed on our mental health team. This does not indicate same person every day, same counselor every day. This is a macro view. But what you can see is the volume of need placed on mental health staff over the course of essentially December through the month of April. Like I said, November, we started very late. This is a snapshot of the acute mental health need. Students who are in crisis where two mental health staff members are conducting a risk assessment that follows the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale. This shows you the number of risk assessments conducted from September through April, as well as the assessment of the risk, low, moderate, or high. High routinely will indicate either a transport to a hospital with parent or through CPAP, but this is indicative of the high school. It does not say, was this a 15-minute? Was this a 2-hour risk assessment? We are seeing a range of length of time of risk assessments where two mental health staff members are co-conducting this risk assessment. They, like I said, it doesn't indicate if it was 15 minutes or 2 hours, but this is showing you the frequency where our high school, because I'm showing you bookend, high school mental health team are conducting the risk assessment. It is everyone uses the same suicide severity rating scale. So we have, we're uniform, we've calibrated, we co-facilitate, so there is no, variation, if you will, between professionals. Why are we showing you this? We are showing you this because, number one, part of our goal with a comprehensive mental health plan is to increase community, whether it's the school, Board of Education, or the greater community, increase the awareness of the mental health needs inside our district. Now, we are showing you what we have been able to collect so far. We are continuing to adjust how we can collect information. And then we're also going to be looking at ways to use our information collection to be able to evaluate and assess how well we are doing. We are also going to be working on calibrating our data collection to be able to tell a more comprehensive story of the K-12 mental health needs in our district. So Leanne and I have, presented to you where we are, our future path of having a comprehensive mental health plan that does bring in all of our professionals, our clinicians. We are also going to hopefully be able to increase the level of mental health professional learning. We are, every time we are seeing a lot of the professional organizations in our state offer up free conferences. They are now using the wonder of Zoom. I know we were hoping Zoom would go away. We're presenting, Board of Ed meeting through Zoom. We have meetings through Zoom. The level of availability of professional learning through Zoom is exponential. It is very powerful. So that ability to release some of our mental health staff from their, very important needs during the day, but also to be able to provide them with the professional learning opportunity it's a very important part of our goals. We will continue to, work toward a more inclusive mental health plan, which will be bringing in our entire team of social workers, psychologists, our partnerships, our prevention specialists. Our goal really is to make it a systemized approach to how we provide supports for our students using the MTSS model on the mental health side, much like we're developing on the academic side. Plug for this coming Sunday, we have the mental health walk. It's an incredible initiative put on by our mental health team. We are partnering with quite a few organizations in the Ontario County region, and all proceeds are going to benefit the family counseling services of the Finger Lakes. We encourage everyone and anyone to participate, show support. It doesn't matter if you are walking or if you're there to show the support. It is very important, and it is one of our initiatives of Mental Health Awareness Month. With that, I'm going to stop the screen share.
Thank you. I'll open it up to board members for questions and comments now.
Jeannie.
Yes, John.
Hey, Vern, is there a way, or Leanne, is there a way to tell how, if of all the different counseling events you have at the different buildings, how many are one and done and how many carry over for months?
I can answer that. We have our data collection can be disaggregated to say, for us to be able to tell, are they one and done, or are they continuous situations? We are using our Infinite Campus counseling tab. It's something that is incredibly secured and limited to mental health team and administration. We do track not the details, but the frequency of risk assessments. That's an example. So we could see with any student that has one risk assessment done, we can see how many have been done in the course of this year, last year, the year before. But we also have a structure where when one mental health team member submits that they have conducted a risk assessment, that data is sent to a central person who then enters it into Infinite Campus. This structure has that umbrella overview of, they can see, is this one and done, or is this the 6th time since February? And then that person's job is to, yes, we know the mental health team they're in the trenches and they're conducting these, but this umbrella view will ask that question, because not every time is it the same exact person conducting the risk assessment. That is a long-winded answer to your question. We have some, but we are developing more measures to be able to say, yes, we can drill down and disaggregate.
Thanks, Vern. And I've never heard anyone refer to you as over or long-winded. Is that the right term? But usually you're quick and like 30 seconds you're done. But
sorry, I'm trying to keep the John LaFave structure going.
whoever told you to do that, let us know, please, but not in public.
Other questions or comments? Jen.
First of all, I'd like to say you are all incredible. Looking at this limited data that I know has only so much of the story you can tell us, I am in awe and I am also tired. Couple of things. My quick eyeball said that over the course of September to April, we had 11 high-risk assessments that were done, and maybe 3 to 4 times that in total in the academy. I know there is no average one of these, but do you have any sense going into one of these at what level it may end up? Or is this one of those things that you run into sort of blind and then figure out when you arrive? That really, to me, also speaks to your professionalism to be able to manage those potentially really high risk things. But I'd like to get some more information how that process is for our professionals in that process, I guess. How's
Yeah,
that?
I can speak to that. I mean, I think a lot of times we know, I mean, it could very well be a student that we haven't seen any signs at all. They've kind of just been sort of suffering in silence. And then they're in our office for a different reason. And you get talking with them and you can just tell maybe they're not themselves. So then the discussion goes further. So that would be one you don't see coming. We have protocols in how we manage these. We never, ever, ever assess a student alone. We always have a second professional with us so that our own emotions don't get in the way when we're trying to work with students. So that's when Vern was talking about the teaming. We always pause the student. We say we're going to bring in another professional to support them. And then we go through the protocol and the step-by-step framework that is used K-12. So we're using the same framework. The questions look and sound a little different depending on the age of the student you're working with. With that being said, we have a lot of students that struggle with depression and anxiety, but not to the level that might be the need for a suicidal risk assessment. But some get to that place over time. So those, when that student arrives and we can tell that they're in a tough place right now and it's worse than maybe we've seen in the past, those aren't surprising to us. They're still not easy to navigate. But the best part is our teaming strategy, I think, helps us all as professionals. And then when Vern said some are 15 minutes, some can go up to 2 hours, that is the truth. So the 15-minute one might be someone overheard a conversation and a student said something about they were, I just feel like dying right now. I don't want to do this anymore. We still have an obligation as a professional to assess, what did you mean by that? And where are you and are you okay? So those might be a 15-minute, they just used words that maybe they wouldn't normally use. They don't really feel that way. Whereas some of our more intense assessments they can take 2 hours because we can't leave the student alone. Oftentimes it's 8th or 9th period. So we're waiting after school for a parent to get off work in Rochester to come, or for CPEP, which is the Comprehensive Psychiatric Emergency Program through Clifton Springs. They send out providers to do a more intensive evaluation on a student if the family supports that. So those can take up to 2 hours. So I don't know if that answers your question, Jen, but it really depends on the student and the situation.
That was really helpful for me to get an understanding of how that works. So in that teaming process, my next question then goes to, what's your distribution of professionals that are available to you to do that teaming? Because it seems to me one of the big things here is kids aren't going to schedule for our convenience when this happens, right? So how does that work to find yourself a team member?
Well, thank you for asking that question. We are able to, we have, at least at the academy, so that's where most of my experience is. So that's what I can speak to. Other buildings might be tougher because we are in a suite here. So I could literally go down the hall, door to door. And we all know whatever we're doing at that moment, if we're called, we reschedule what we're doing. So the things we can't reschedule, if we're at a CSE meeting and we're on a Zoom, but we have in our building, we just got a social worker this year. So that's been phenomenal. And then we have Cindy Vanderlee, our prevention specialist, who's also trained with risk assessments, our 2 psychologists. So we are able to call and they know all hands on deck. So if I'm meeting with a student to do, let's call it a junior seminar, and I'm needed, I'll just simply say to that junior, you know what, I'm going to have to reschedule you for another day. We're going to pause here, but I will get back to you because I have to go assist another counselor. And then they get rescheduled, and then I go and support the other counselor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Julianne?
So first of all, I just want to thank you for the thoroughness of the presentation and the data in particular. It's really helpful to, even though I understand it was just a snapshot, to have some numbers and some sense of where we are in our buildings. compared to sort of those quotes that you presented at the beginning. So knowing that this has been an issue, but to be able to see that data to get a better sense of what that's really looking like. And I also appreciate the direction of creating this more comprehensive plan. But what it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that while all of these components have always been part of the job of our counseling department, that with this increase in mental health needs and this new, more comprehensive way of looking at the work of the department, the nature of the work is also shifting, or at least things are being added to the nature of the work, that this is becoming a much bigger component of the work. And it's not like everything else is now taking less time than it used to take. So my question is, and I don't expect you to have an answer to it now, but as you find more of this data and as you build this picture, I know I, as a board member, would love to know what additional supports need to be put into place, what additional steps need to be taken so that we can be doing this work and supporting you as professionals and our students. I think the idea of the co-located services is phenomenal. I would love to understand how that could be built out, or what it would potentially look like to build that out so that more students could be seen that way, just knowing how hard it is to access services and the logistical challenges of accessing services for families in the middle of a school day. How do you get a kid to an appointment at 11 o'clock and there are only so many appointments after the school day? But if it's in the building, that's easier. So I guess it's mostly just a request, as you learn more and you have a better sense of what this means for your work, for us to be able to know what you need and what our kids need so that this work can happen, because clearly we're at a point where we're facing needs that we haven't faced at this level before.
That is the truth. And in terms of what we need, I think that is something that we can reflect on and certainly be thinking about along the way and share out. I want to touch back on that co-location of services and supporting students. We separate from that and the access to outside mental health. You nailed it when you said, trying to find those after school appointments and trying to get your child there during the day. We have a number of students who do telehealth with their providers outside. And so what they are doing is planning during their study hall or their lunch period to have their appointment. And we provide them a conference room so they can Zoom with their therapist and have that during their available time, but so they can still receive their outside intensive therapy. Because in a school setting, we are trained mental health providers, but we provide what we call brief therapy. We can't do long therapy with students because our goal, and I have to remind my team sometimes of this, is that we are to try to help the student manage so that they can get back to the academic setting. So we do what we can so we can get them back into the classroom so they're not missing instructional time. And then if they require more intensive work, that's where we refer out. But like I said, the referrals wait lists are very long. So I think we are moving in a very good direction with this co-location of services. I have great hopes that over time, I believe Matt Schrage could speak to this a little bit more, but I think we are a pilot school for this. So I think that we're going to start to see this grow, and then other schools perhaps trying to pursue something very similar.
Yeah, we are indeed the only school in Ontario County that has this. So this was very much an opportunity for us to work closely with OCMH. They've been tremendous. The communication is excellent. The level of support we've received, they're incredibly collaborative. They're very much excited about this too, because in a lot of ways, we're helping them to access students a whole lot easier than they might previously. So the volume of students that are able to access it already, Leanne shared some of the stats initially about the number of students, and we're thinking transitionally, even thinking about perhaps 5 go 6 students as they're entering the middle school next year, where we first started, and then trying to think transitionally for students that might be engaging in the support as 8th graders. How do we carry that into 9th grade? So that's where the concept of us having a day, not just a day and a half in middle school, with some time at the academy to support those students as well, so that continuity of service can either begin as they enter the middle school or continue as they enter the academy.
I have a comment and a question, and my comment is that none of those graphs show the adults that walk into your office every day,
So true.
touching base, or for the
Mhm.
kind of support that you all provide, not strictly because of your training, but because of the people you are. So I know that that takes an enormous amount of your time too, and thank you for that part of your work also. I'm wondering about the kids you referenced when you said suffering in silence.
Mhm.
And I don't even know if this is our role, but now I'm looking at it through the lens of, we do this to help you get back to your number one job, which is academics. So what way do we have, or do we need a way to figure out where kids are? So that it's not, you happen to be in my office, what a serendipity that is. And I'm noticing,
Right.
because I have the luxury of having a one-on-one interaction without the bell ringing and 24 other students needing me. And I can see on your face that something is up.
Mhm.
Is there some sort of, I don't know, screening tool?
Yes, I was
way
just going to say that.
Say to kids, how are you today? And what do you need?
Mhm. We've talked about a universal screener, and that is part of our work that our core team is looking at. Universal screeners K-12. There are a lot out there. Vern and I started a little bit of research to try to find a tool that we felt like might make sense. And then planning out, when do we give that universal screener to gather information? Is that once in the fall, once in the spring, and then see what's the difference between the data that we collect? So that is a direction that we are moving, because it does worry me that, and students will tell us that they don't like to talk to the counselors because we have to tell their parents or report them. So they're talking to each other, it's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So this year we just piloted in our health class this teen mental health first aid training. And again, I want to thank Matt Schrage for helping get that going. It's through the Wayne BOCES. It's a certified program. And our health teacher we have now 4 trained other mental health staff to teach this program. It's a 7-day training in the health classes. And they learn about mental health, how to support a peer who's struggling, and how, obviously talk to adults about concerns that are happening. And we just finished in April, the second session of it. So we did one for the fall class of health and one for the spring. Our vision with this teen mental health first aid training is that every student will have it before they graduate. So we're starting this year with the 10th grade cohort. And then next year, our current 9th graders will get it. It's heavy stuff. And we've seen some kids that come out of the class and are struggling. They have to fill out an exit ticket after each period of health to say if they need to speak to somebody immediately or if they want to see somebody within a day. And then our counselors are sort of on call to try to respond to those. So we're hoping through that again, it's changing the stigma and being able to talk about our mental health like we talk about our physical health. And that if there's a concern, you're able to seek help and not feel judged by it, if you will.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for everything. If there's nothing else from board members, then we'll just offer our sincere thanks again for everything you do. Really appreciate it. And thank you for being with us tonight. You are, of course, welcome to stay, but you are more than welcome to go.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye. Fantastic. Thank you. Let's see. We have a consensus and supplemental agenda up for approval. I'll ask for motions, please. Julianne and Jen, questions or comments? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. And let's see, committee reports. Michelle, are you reporting out on audit?
I sure am. So we had our Finances Fund Committee meeting. I believe it's my second to last one ever. So I will miss the group, and we actually do have some fun on that committee. We covered a lot of ground. We reviewed the claims auditor quarterly report. Jill Erlinger did a fabulous job. Once again, no concerns there. Tom Zuber from Mengel Metzger Bar came to visit us and really reviewed our external audit process. They take a look at key risk areas. So for school districts, as you can imagine, those are things like payroll process and procedures, compliance, fraud risk, looking at fund balance and reserves, and really trying to anticipate how a district is going to handle challenges that are coming up, such as inflation and fuel costs, which fuel costs are obviously a current challenge for us right now. Let's see. Colin Spencer did a fabulous job giving us the update on our extra classroom internal audit. And that audit reviews from some of our high balance clubs took a look at their profit and loss statement, sales tax, and made sure that all the checks and balances were in place. And really fabulous work. I know that the finance group's been working with the school clubs to really help them understand how they have to manage through the processes. So no material findings or concerns there. So bravo to Matt, Fitch, Cullen, and the rest of that team. The controller's office is here doing an audit. They visit school districts, of course, on occasion, and are settling in, doing staff interviews, and looking at different areas to dive in deeper. And then lastly, we had a very comprehensive review, again, of our fund balance projections and our reserves. And once again, we are in really, really good shape. So props to the whole team. And I think that was everything, right, Jamie and Matt Fitch? I think so.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
John, were you at safety?
Yeah, safety is a blast. If finance is fun, safety is a blast. We talked about some revisions, there's not a lot to talk about, but some revisions to the not the code of conduct. What's the other one that goes hand in the safety plan, dealing with the Alka sensor and dealing with smelling salts. So nothing was finalized. There was just some discussion, and we're supposed to get some more information from Vern at the next meeting.
Great. Thank you very much. Anything else, Jamie?
Enjoy the sunshine this week.
Yep. Hope to see as many of you as possible at the end of the vote on Tuesday, the 17th. And then as a reminder, we have our meeting the next night to accept the results of the vote. So thank you very much. I'll ask for motions to adjourn, please. Michelle and Jen, all in favor.